Thank you for joining us this morning to discuss non-degree TAP processing. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Lisa Simpson. I'm the Director of College Services. I'm here today with Michael Turner, who many of you know. He works with me in the priority services area and does much more. So we're going to do the presentation on non-degree TAP training this morning. I'm going to ask that you hold the questions to the end, and then we will have a Q&A where you will be able to answer all your questions. But we will start with getting the presentation through first. So, as you are aware, the 2022 New York State budget allowed for part-time students enrolled in non-degree workforce credential programs leading to employment or advancement of a student in a significant industry as identified by the Department of Labor to receive part-time TAP. So there are a list of participating schools and programs that were provided by SUNY. HESC reviewed the programs as well and agreed that the current list for the current list for the spring 2024. SUNY has the programs and the colleges listed on their website, and a link to these programs are also available on the HESC website. The approved programs will be updated. Right now I have it as a yearly basis, but I am looking to see if it's by term, so I will confirm that for you. But for the spring 2024 term, which is what we're discussing today, the programs that are approved are out on the websites. So the process that we'll be discussing reflects the language in law and regulations, and the approved programs include both non-degree workforce development courses and micro-credentials. You will only be certifying students in the programs that were approved by SUNY and are posted on both websites. So that's a little bit about what the program eligibility is for this term. So let's talk a little bit about the student eligibility. So for this program, students will need to meet all the eligibility requirements for TAP, such as residency, citizenship, and income verification process. We're going to be using the ICER data to confirm citizenship and residency, and we'll be sending the information, the income information, to New York State Tax and Finance for IVP. If we are unable to validate these statuses, we will use the same exception processing currently in place to determine eligibility. Okay, so students need to be in an approved program as determined by the school, so you will tell us that they're in the program. They must be taking part-time, taking the equivalent of 1 to 11 credits, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit more detail shortly. For this program, for the spring 2024 term, HESC will use the current school codes, and we did this because of the timing. We didn't have a lot of time between when the program was finally approved in December to get it live for the spring term. So because of those restraints, we are using the current school codes, and we're going to discuss this going forward. So that is for this term. So what is different from this program to regular part-time TAP? Because all your colleges can administer part-time TAP for regular students. So here are some of the things that are different. So the student does not need to have a high school diploma equivalent or a passing score on an ATB test to be eligible for an award. The student is enrolled as a non-matriculated student in one of the approved programs. The program is not required to meet the 15-week requirement for class length, as it is for other TAP programs. The student does not need to meet the requirement where the student must be a first-time freshman in the 2006 year or going forward. So they do not need to meet that requirement, which is a requirement for regular part-time TAP. And again, the student does not.
Too many other refunds yet. Now I got to get back into this. I don't know where I was.
Need to mute your lines, please. And the student does not need to be matriculated. So the application process. So the application process will look very familiar. Basically, we are using the same process we are using for regular part-time TAPS recipients for this term. We chose to follow this path because, again, it needed minimal programming. The applications were already open and in place, and we could start students applying as soon as the program went live. So for the traditional student, they follow the same process as matriculated student applicants. They must file the 23-24 FAFSA and TAP applications. The applications are processed using the same checks I mentioned earlier. Citizenship, residency, and IVP are all completed as part of the approval process. Once fully approved, the student will receive a full-time TAP award using the tuition amount on our system for the school code. So it'll use the full-time tuition for a traditional student. The information will then be provided on a student status listing to schools in the same file as other TAP approved students. And I'll talk to you a little bit about how you're going to be able to identify these students on the student status listing in a minute. So for the DREAM Act applicants, it is again the same process we use for other students. The student must apply and first be approved under the DREAM Act. Once they're approved to be apply on as the DREAM Act and approved, they will follow the same application process to get approved for a TAP award. Once fully approved, the TAP award will display on the HESC website. A full-time TAP award will be calculated, and once on the HESC system, information will again be on the student status listing to the schools. So some of the school responsibilities. So the school's responsibilities are as follows. The school will provide the student population to HESC, and we need to discuss this in a couple minutes to see the best way to handle this. A student ID is necessary to receive information about these students as well. So as you know, we do require a student ID. We don't use social security numbers. I'm not sure if this population usually has a student ID attached to them as a non-matriculated student, but students who are applying for financial aid, you will need to provide them with a student ID, which you will need to send to HESC to update. So you can either use the current process that you use for providing student information, which is either an electronic file that you send back and forth, or you can update this online on the HESC website. For the Dreamer applicants, they must provide the student ID as part of the application process. So since some of the courses are not set up as credit hours, any courses in clock hours need to be converted to credit hours prior to certification. So you'll be doing all your certification based on credit hours, whether they are applied for credit hours or you're going to convert them to credit hours. For this population, you'd only be processing for the spring 2024 term. So for this, right now, we're just talking about the 2024 term. However, going forward for 24-25, a school may need to determine which term the award would be based if there's a crossover in terms for certain programs. And we can talk about that in a little bit for next year. For certifications, all students in non-degree TAP must be certifying online at HESC. So you cannot send in an electronic certification to identify this population. For this term only, it's online certification. So schools can certify online for 3 to 11 credits, but any of your programs with 1 to 2 credits must be certified manually by HESC. So right now our system has a, our system does have a process where we can certify from 3 to 11 credits because of the ADA population, but we do not have anything in place for 1 to 2 credits. So for the short term, it's going to have to be a manual certification, and I don't even know how many of your programs are really for 1 or 2 credits, but we are going to handle that manually. We're going to develop a form which you can certify on this form and send it to HESC, and then we will manually certify the student on our scholarship database It will still show up on student status listing. It will still show up on the roster for payment. But this process is being developed. We don't have the form quite ready yet, but we will have it shortly so you can certify, and we'll outline all the steps on this manual certification process. And again, hopefully just for this one term. So all certifications will display on an RA, and the accounting will be provided with other TAP awards. So there is an SAP requirement that goes with this, and I know this population is a little bit different, but there is a component. It's assessed differently due to the program structure. So SAP for students in these programs are basically measured by the percentage of credits completed necessary for the program, rather than a set number of credits. So students will be using a certain percentage of the completion of program versus the number of credits they are creating or they are taking in terms. So I'm going to show you an example in a minute, which probably will make more sense to you. But assessment is determined at the end of each term of the academic year. Students who lose good academic standing will not receive further payments until the student is restored to good academic standing, either by making SAP progress toward completion of their academic requirements or providing evidence of their ability to successfully complete the program. So some of your programs may be just one semester anyway, but just to show you what we are thinking, these are the SAP chart. As you can see, this varies because of the percentage of the coursework completed. So I think for the micro-credential programs, and don't hold me to this 100%, but I believe those programs do, in some instances, if not always, have a GPA attached to them. So they would use this chart to assess. But if there is they're non-matriculated students, there is no GPA, you would be looking at the percentage used. And again, I think most of these programs are fairly short-term programs. So this is the SAP chart. And if you have any questions, we can talk about that in a little while. So let's jump to certification for a moment. So as I mentioned earlier, the student will appear on a roster once fully approved and at the appropriate time frame based on regular TAP guidelines. The student status listing in the roster will have a non-degree TAP flag to identify this population. This is why we need the list of students in the eligible programs that I discussed earlier. So what we're going to do is we are going to get a list from you of the folks that applied for TAP that are on the system with the name and the student ID of the student. We are going to populate a flag, which I'm going to show you in a couple minutes, indicating that this student is a non-degree TAP student. And then the flag will display in a number of places, so you will be able to see that it is one of the students that are in the non-degree program. So you're going to see it in multiple places, including for certification. And again, the flag will also display on the student status listing for schools to identify the correct population. And this is just a temporary way for us to identify until we can come up with a longer term plan that will be a little bit smoother for the schools. Certification must be done online, as I mentioned, for this spring term, and we're looking to automate it for 24-25. Students are eligible for payment again from 1 to 11 credits. So for 3 to 11, you're going to do it online on the HESC website. For 1 to 2, you're going to send it to us and we're going to help you out and do it for you. So we'll have instructions on that shortly. So the schools will identify the student is at certification that they're using a non-degree. We have a checkbox that I'm going to show you in the next slide that will show to us that you are certifying someone that's a non-degree TAP recipient. It's similar to what the ADA box currently is. And you won't be using both of those, and probably you will not be using the ADA box at all. You would not need that because the non-degree TAP students are non-matriculated. So I do not believe that you look to see if they are registered with the American for Disabilities. And they are already able to get between 1 and 11 credits. So you would not be using the ADA, but it is similar checkbox, but you cannot select both, and you would be selecting just the non-degree TAP checkbox. So you're going to input the actual tuition based on the credits in the program, and this is needed as the tuition reflects currently your regular school tuition. So you're going to put in the accurate tuition. You're going to use the same certification codes that you currently do for part-time students. So one being eligible, two being TAP no scholarship. I don't think you'll really see that situation, but a student may have received a academic excellence award. So you would need to certify them just for TAP if they're in this program. And then code 3 would be withdrawn for liability. I just want to remind folks that for part-time TAP in general, don't use certification code 5. That is not full-time, and sometimes we are finding that schools are certifying that, thinking that that's how the student's going to get part-time TAP, whether it's for this program or for traditional part-time programs. So you don't use certification 5. You were just going to, because that will not allow the payment. You would also include any other benefits that may be awarded in this population, such maybe employer tuition reimbursement and certain VA benefits. So if they do have other benefits, then you do need to put those in if they are specific for TAP only, same as you would for a traditional part-time TAP student or a full-time student. You're also going to put the enrollment status in. That's how we're going to identify the portion of the what the percentage of the award will be. So you will not put in, do not put in part-time PT. You're going to put in the actual number of credits that the student is enrolled for as part of the certification. So here's an example of the what the payment is going to look like. As you can see where the arrow is, you're going to check the flag that says that they are in a non-degree part-time TAP program. It will only display for part-time participating schools. So if the school code is not a school that is participating, then it will not show. For those schools, I know some of our schools have 2-year and 4-year school codes. I know that some of the schools, Cobleskill and Farmingdale, and some of the those ag and tech schools have 2- and 4-year codes. For this program, the student needs to be listed under the 2-year school code for certification. If the student uses a 4-year code, you need to change it because it will not display because it's attached to the 2-year program. So here's the percentage that you will have for full-time students, and this is of the full-time award. Here's the percentage that students will get based on credits. Our system will recalculate it once you certify. So you will certify the award, you will hit submit. Our system will recalculate it. We'll look at the actual tuition. We'll look at the number of credits you certified for. We'll see if there's any other benefits. We'll look at what the full-time award for TAP was, and then we will do a percentage. And then you can see in the far right column is the percentage of the points, TAP points that will be included for the student. So when it goes to the TAP points, the program is set up that it counts towards what it would be for a matriculated student. So students in these programs do accrue TAP points, which will be counted for towards their lifetime allowance. So if they then apply for an associate's program, they will start off having whatever TAP points they had receiving this in for the non-matriculated program. So here's how the award will be determined, and I think I just spoke about this a bit, but the schools will submit the certification. We're going to calculate the part-time award based on tuition, number of credits, and I see that there was a comment in there, I think it said that you use just the number of credits, it's a per credit tuition, so that's what you would indicate. Once this process, the student will be on the RA, and the student status listing will be updated to reflect the updated award. A single payment will be made after certification as it is today, and the award and the accounting is listed both on the RA and the accounting reports. This population does already go into the accounting, so it will count as in your accounting for your reconciliation. So again, for reporting, just a little bit of a repeat, but kind of the steps on how it's going to go. The student's going to be identified on the student status listing, on the roster, on the view student record. The non-degree TAP identifier is going to be added to all of those fields. Certification status will have a flag to indicate non-degree. Student payment information will be encountered in accounting reports. And then we're going to develop some customized reports. I'm going to ask you, not necessarily today, but what reports would you need? What will make it easier for you to identify this population? Do you need something different? So, let me know what you think customized reports you need other than what we already have. And I have a couple of ideas of what you basically would need, but if you need extra reporting, then we can talk about that. So just to kind of show you what the view student record is going to look like, as you can see down by the program of study, I thought that probably made the most sense where we should identify this population. So the program of study would be there down with the program of study group, and here is the lower portion of the payment data. Still, we're on view student record, and it would have a flag with a 1 saying that it was in a non-degree program. So our next steps, and then I'm going to open it up and we'll answer. I see there's a good number of questions coming through, so we can talk about any outstanding issues. So here are the next steps. So HESC steps. So we're going to identify the student population. So we're going to work with the schools. We have the school list ready, and if schools will provide us with a list of students who are approved for HESC or for TAP, HESC will have our IT area update the flag to indicate these students are non-degree students. And again, we're going to load it on the view student record, which I just showed you a couple minutes ago. We're going to load it there, and then it will carry over to the student status listing. And I do realize that you would not have programming in place for this now. And this is where maybe we need a report or something to assist you with that. So if you can provide us with the list of students and student IDs, or you can send it secure, and we'll develop a process where you could send something secure if you want to send it with social security numbers. But basically, if you send us the student ID, student's name, date of birth, we can find the student, because again, there's a TAP record out there. ITS is going to update it with the non-degree TAP flag. And then right now we're currently processing applications and calculating awards. Again, it's on full-time basis and tuition at the school, but we are already processing, which is why in the short time we had to go with using the FAFSA and the TAP application, just because that was something that we could go with day one. We could at least get the students' information. We could at least get them vetted through the process to be eligible for a TAP award, and we could calculate something. So they should be out there. And HESC needs to create that process for manual certification. And I have it all spec'd out, so we will be developing that. And then you're going to tell us, you're going to help us work to see what reports would be handy for you to have to identify this population, for anything you might need with this population. So step 2 for SUNY, you're going to send us the student population. You're going to provide the student IDs, and that's how you're going to identify them. For this one term, you're going to certify the students online. You're going to determine if they meet the eligibility, which includes all the edits like being in the correct program and meeting all the criteria. And then you're going to certify them part-time. and then you're going to post the student account with an award. And then the long-term plan is we need to develop a longer-term plan that will make the application most viable with ease of processing for students and for schools. We also want to make sure that we are adding something that is that we can integrate into our new modernization program. As you know, we are going to be developing a new system. And so we want to make sure whatever decisions we make for the 24-25 year will work well in our new system. So we need to take a look at that. So just a couple of other items. And I'm sure Shirley Clark is very interested in this part. We do have record layouts for both the student status listing and for the roster. We are going to be sending it out on Monday. I'm just waiting. The person from IT who gives the final sign off is off today, or I would have sent it today. But we will be sending you the record layouts. They are filler fields that we've put the field in, so we're hoping that that makes it a slightly bit easier for you to include the non-degree chat flag. We understand that it is late for us to be providing it to us, but we did not have a lot of time to set up the program to get going, and there were some conflicts with, everybody knows what's going on for the 24-24 ISER. So there was a lot of competing resources, we'll say. So we will get the record layout to you. I do have a policy and procedure manual that I am going to be sending out. I did not send it out yet. It is ready to go, but I wanted to wait until we had our meeting today so we could look at the questions that you have and then identify if there's anything else that we need to add into the to the procedures. Once we take a look at that and answer all your questions today, we will I'll get that right out to you. But again, it's all ready and it's been finalized through our system. It's just I didn't want to send it out until I found out if there were some other items that I might have missed. So I think at this time, Mike, let's open it up for questions and see if we can see what we can do to help folks with anything they might need to know.
Sounds good, Lisa. So there are some questions that came into chat, so we'll start with those, and then time permits, we can allow folks maybe to unmute. There's a question Patty Noren was asking, when we say that the school provides the info to HESC, do you mean the school's financial aid office, or is it the workforce office working with the FAO to do this?
Well, for this term, since we need the student ID and you'd have to identify the population, and then we only need to know if they applied for aid. So we only need to know that population if they applied for TAP. So I would say if the workforce credential staff probably does not have access to the HESC system to see. So you don't need to look up every single student. You can just run a customized report and look at the application, do a spreadsheet on the applications, and that should tell you your population. If you just go through and do a compare of who's enrolled versus who has a TAP on the system, that will give you your population.
All right, and then a few folks were asking for the slides. I think you sent that out earlier, right?
Yeah, I sent it out. I didn't send it out until this morning. I sent it out about between 8:15 and 8:30, and I did confirm that school folks have received it. So the slides are out in your mailbox.
Okay.
We did get a couple bounce backs. So if you didn't get it, send me an email and let me know, because I think he said there were just a few bounce backs that came today. We didn't get any yesterday when we sent out the notice. We didn't get any, but today we got a few, and it might have been out of office. But if for some reason you didn't get it, send it to me, because I took your email address off what we had on the college table. So I want to make sure everything's right, so you're getting emails.
Okay. There's a question about the tuition rate. So what if one of the approved workforce credential programs actually has a higher tuition rate than the school's traditional full-time tuition rate.
I will have to take that back. We'll have to make an adjustment, but I will take that back. That's higher tuition rate then. Yeah, that one, whatever school that is, please send me that information. I'll have to take that back to see how we can handle that.
Yeah, there's another question on tuition, just saying that it's not a real tuition that they're being charged. It's just some sort of cost that they indicate as tuition. So I'm not sure what that's supposed to mean.
So if it's a, if it's the cost for the class, my understanding is that's what be what you would use.
So they can use whatever the cost is for the student to be in the program, not a cost of attendance, but the direct costs that they're being charged would be.
Direct costs. I mean, we'd have to probably look into a little bit more detail. Are supplies included in that? Is it like something where you get supplies with it, like medical supplies or something, or is it just a cost of the classes? I believe if it's whatever the cost of the classes is what you would put down for tuition. But we'll have to get a better understanding if someone could spell out what the costs are. That would be helpful.
Yep. So Shirley had some comments about how the SECAS campuses are going to be able to handle these awards coming in through the SSL and RA with the separate coding. But I guess we would just need to work with Shirley on smoothing that out.
Yeah, we'll work it out. Yeah, we'll work it out. And again, Shirley, this is just for this semester. At this point, we don't even know how many students applied, but we will need to have a process in place for just this term till we can get more programming and more understanding of the best way to handle it. So we can set up a meeting next week, Shirley, or Monday if you'd like.
All right. And question about points. So what if a student's going into one of these workforce credential programs having already used 36 TAP points? Are they going to be eligible?
They're not eligible, no.
Okay.
Nope, their TAP points count towards their matriculate. So if they already received if they already have 36 points and now they're coming into this program, they would not be eligible.
All right. So question about the credit equivalency. So there's one school saying that the credit-free courses are not assigned a credit value. The approved programs determined for part-time TAP for non-degree programs do have credit hour equivalencies on the credit side, but are not assigned these credit values upon registration. And so I guess it's really not a question, it's a statement. And it said also about concerns about the grading of those courses. It says the credit-free courses are assigned S or U grades and they don't have an associated GPA.
Yeah, and so I'm working with our council to see if we need to do anything. SRU, I asked about pass fail, to see, do we need to count any of that? Do we need to see where they are? So I'm trying to get more clarification on the SU and pass fail. But my understanding is for the SAP, you would look at you would just look at that they completed the correct percentage of program.
And on the credit equivalencies, are we providing any guidance on conversion of the clock hour equivalents to semester hour?
I don't think we do for regular programs. Erica or Patty, do you have any insight on what they do for other programs? Is it a federal? I know we can there's an equivalency chart someplace. Is it through the feds?
Yeah, there's a you're talking about the credit hour,
Yes.
I'm sorry, the clock hour conversion.
Clock to credit. Yeah.
Yeah, they have to actually use the credit hour that's assigned by the campus for this purpose. So if they're signing, let's just say they're signing one credit that will be applicable toward the degree program if they matriculate, then that's the credit they need to use.
All right.
Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Another question about students who are receiving the traditional TAP award and deciding to go into these programs. So what if the student is in a degree seeking program, I guess receiving normal TAP, but then opts to pursue one of these micro-credential programs in tandem? How is eligibility treated?
They would not be eligible for this because they'd be a matriculated student from the other program.
So they can't do both, right? So if I'm taking a micro-credential at the same time, like along with a regular degree?
No, because they'd be matriculated. This is
Okay.
only strictly for non-matriculated.
And my micro-credential credit equivalencies or whatever we're calling them wouldn't be able to count as applicable credit then?
Can you repeat that?
So let's say I'm doing the two programs, Lisa. I'm in like a regular bachelor's degree program, but I'm also doing one of these workforce credential things on the side, maybe as a secondary major or something. Those credits in the the workforce credential program, or those credit equivalencies, they shouldn't be used as applicable credit toward my full-time or part-time status for regular TAP?
No, because it's not in your program of study.
Okay.
It's a non-degree.
Yep, that's what I just want to make sure we spelled that out for folks. Can students appeal for not meeting SAP with the C average or the one-time good academic standing waiver?
I believe the answer to that is no. They cannot, but let me double check that with, let me double check that.
All right, and then
I don't think would there be a need for that?
I guess what if they failed to
If they-
pursue,
if
like
they
if they,
were-
they withdrew from the classes and then want to come back? Because they had maybe like a medical situation, they had to drop all their hours for this term and now they want to come back the next term.
I'll check on that.
Okay. What is the max number of payments the students can receive in the non-degree? It's going to be the same as the 2-year limit, right? For TAP awards?
It's whatever, yeah, depending on what the program length is, yeah.
And what is the maximum award amount?
Well, it's going to be prorated based on the tuition that is being charged or the costs that are being charged to the program. Then we will calculate a full award based on that. And then it will be prorated based on the number of credits.
Lisa,
No.
can you re-show the percentage, the chart
Of course.
that
Yes.
shows that?
Of course, yes, thank you.
Yeah, there's just a common thread of questions about the concern about these tuition equivalencies, so to speak, for the cost of the programs, because folks are saying it's not really tuition per se.
Right. So let me share this. Okay. Okay, so this is the percentage. So I think we're going with tuition versus costs. So we'll clarify that in the policy and procedure. But obviously, if you're not calling it tuition, there are still costs that you have to pay to take this class, right? So cost tuition could be the same, meaning only different because of the way these structures are. Now, if you're talking cost of a class, if you're talking about cost of a class, then as long as it's not for supplies, fees, or anything like that, that is what you would charge, that is what you would put in certification for what we're calling tuition. Does that clarify better? And then, so then we'll recalculate. We'll look at what the full award would be, a percentage. Obviously, the maximum is 56.65 if it's a dependent student, but depending on if any of your courses are charging that much, and then it would be a percentage based on this chart.
All right, a pretty good question came in asking for clarity. What if the student in the workforce credential program are the schools only certifying for the courses toward that program? What if they're also taking credit-bearing coursework at the same time?
No, it's only for this program, these programs.
So the non-degree, the non-credit
So
courses.
the right.
Yep, okay. And, so just to clarify, the students that schools need to report to us, students that are in the workforce credential programs and have applied for TAP.
Correct.
If students have attended college before and have received TAP before, do they need to maintain the C average? So I guess I would add to that question, what if they already have 2 years of TAP payments?
Right, so they do not, for this program, it's like starting fresh. Just like you don't have to have college prior to the, you can get it if you went to school prior to 06. You can, we don't look at, they don't need a C average waiver if they're starting in this program.
All right, and somebody was asking about the credit prorations, but you have that up on the screen here. Someone's asking, where do they find their approved programs?
So SUNY received the list from the campuses. So it's on the SUNY website. It is also on the HESC website. If you go to pay and you go to the part-time tab, click on there, and then on the top, there's a link that sends you to, if you can select the link for the non-degree programs. If the campuses are there and the programs should be there, it's linking to SUNY, but SUNY has all the programs listed as well.
Okay, and then someone's asking again about the cost structure. So they gave an example. They said the course fee for a particular program is $126. There's a book fee of $73. So are they only reporting the tuition, quote unquote tuition, as $126? Or are they including the fee?
Yeah, just the 126. We're not paying for books, just like we wouldn't pay for. The only thing we pay for is the cost to take the class for now, tuition only. So it would be no fees and it would be no book allowance or charge.
Okay, and it's saying that, so they would get an award based on 8.33% of the 126 charge?
That's if that is just, yes, if that's how it works, yeah.
Okay.
So just some of my questions, we're gonna print out your questions off of the chat, but some questions that I have on the policy. So students in default are not eligible for the program. I don't, that's pretty much a given, but because we have some of the other pieces that are not, let's see. If
There were a
they've
couple of questions about the term structure. Some schools say that the programs don't fall within the traditional term structure dates. So can we address how that works?
Yeah, so if they don't fall within the term structure, and I believe, and Erica, you can correct me, there are some campuses that have like part of terms and things like that. The schools would need to determine which semester they are applicable for the financial aid to be in. For this particular semester, it's only for a spring term. So your program has to be within that spring term. But when it becomes a full year that we are working with, I believe now schools determine which part of which semester the courses are going in for part of terms. Erica, do you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, we know that sometimes these courses overlap terms, so the campus will just have to determine themselves which one it belongs to.
All right, and just somebody wants a clarification, and I'll just read their question. So they want to confirm about the answer that we gave about students, I guess, who are taking credit-bearing coursework in tandem with the non-credit or the non-degree workforce credential programs. They're saying they have the micro-credential built in as banner as programs that are not fundable. The answer was just stated, was that they are eligible only for the workforce credentials. The list they receive for all their micro-credentials and none of their workforce programs that are non-credit. So can we clarify? I don't know if Jessica, maybe you want to unmute so you can see, maybe speak a little bit more about what clarity you're seeking. Jessica Emerson.
Lisa, hi. Yes, so in that question that was answered, it sounded from the way that was articulated back was these are only non-credit courses, but the approved list that we receive for our institution currently only has our micro credentials listed, which yes, we have built as non-matriculated, but our actual workforce non-credit, none of those were on the list as of right now. So going forward, if we do get a new list of approved programs, potentially could be on there. But I just want to confirm, if micro credentials are our credit-bearing courses, even though they're in there as non-program and they're on our approved list, we can still send this list of students if we have any.
The only students that are eligible are ones that are on that list. They have to be in one of those programs that are on the list from SUNY.
Okay, thank you.
So if they're not on that list, then they cannot participate in this program. Because there were other guidelines that made the program eligible. And SUNY was the one that made the decision on which meet the criteria through the Department of Labor. So if they're not on the list, then you cannot certify them for non-degree TAP.
Thank you.
Yeah, but I just want to just say, if you didn't get the PowerPoint, just email Priority Services. A couple folks have already done so, and I'll send it over to you. So I know a couple people were asking Sophia. I got Rachel's email. So I'll email it out to you if you want to just shoot an email to the Priority Services inbox. So,
Right.
Yeah, go ahead, Lisa.
We are going to put the recording up on our website, as well as the PowerPoint and the procedure manual. So it will be up, not today, but it will be up on our website next week under the financial aid section of the website. Just one other thing that we had another question on, not in this session, but as we were trying to develop things. Student currently enrolled in high school and is in one of your approved programs, they are not eligible to apply. Let's see.
So there's a question here about what if they're not in good academic standing from the prior term, which I think is pretty good. So let's say they were matriculated, fall out of good academic standing. Now they next semester want to go micro-credential. Can they receive this with the clean slate you were saying before?
My understanding is they can. Yep, and that is my understanding. I'm going to double check with our council, but my understanding is once they start this program, they start like fresh with the rules, and I will make sure that gets in the FAQs that will go, so we have full clarification of that. But my understanding is yes, they can. So, but I'm going to double check. I already wrote that down.
Hi, Mike and Lisa. It's Mary Brooke and Wen at Cayuga. Talking about SAP, is it gonna, looking at the chart that was in the PowerPoint, is it gonna be similar to how part-time TAP evaluates SAP, and a student could be in the same band for several awards if they haven't accrued enough points to get into the next band, or is it payments only?
So I think, Lisa, we had a SAP chart for this, right?
Yeah, I'm showing it, Nat. Can you see it?
Yep.
Okay, go ahead, Mike. You can answer that one.
No, so yeah, we're doing it here based on payment progression. So it's the same theory, same practice, I'm sorry, that we use for part-time TAP. So you're right, it would be at the point in which the student has earned enough points to progress to the next payment level. So if I have a student who's getting just 1 point and they've never received any TAP before, they're still stuck in that first slot until they've earned enough points to progress to the next slot of the SAP chart.
Degree refer to in this SAP chart?
Where it says non-degree, or, oh, you mean the degree? That's that last column, Lisa? Should that be, was that an error? Should that have been?
Yeah. Program completion. We'll change it. Sorry.
So, just another question about points. If a student used all their points up for a degree program, they're out of luck, right, for the non-degree program?
Yep.
And we just spoke about point progression. It's the same point progression, right? 6, 12, 18, 24, so on.
Well, they'll be prorated based on number of credits. But yes, this chart is.
Yes. Yep. So same point progression. But those are the questions in the chat, so I don't know if
Okay.
we allow time for unmuting for additional questions, Lisa?
We can, we're gonna copy these questions from chat, and we're gonna address them in the procedure manual, just, we'll get clarification on the couple that and we'll try and reword tuition versus costs, because that seems to be some confusion, with this population, so, we'll take all of that back. And again, if you think of questions after today, you certainly can put them through priority services, because Mike and I monitor that mailbox, and we will be happy to address them and add them to our document. So does anyone else have any questions at this time? Okay, so I want to thank you all for joining us. We will be working for those schools that are SECA schools. We're going to be